Good morning. I'm Gregory Mason, and welcome to First Presbyterian Church for Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church's service. We'll start with some announcements. We are continuing with no weekly news sent out this month. In the meantime, church announcements can be sent to me. Here's something you're going to want to listen to. Starting September 1st, we will be launching our monthly unifier. The deadline to get announcements in is August 25th for the September 1st publication. Going forward, the deadline will be the 20th of the month. We are hoping to have a more comprehensive, meaningful publication that can be a reference piece throughout the month. To that end, we need the news to include activities for the whole month and perhaps even the early part of the next month as save the dates. We are looking for information from any committees or task force with events and info to share and community events relevant to our members and friends. See today's email for all the details. The next deadline for paper raise right orders is today. If you need a form, see me. Thank you to our volunteers today. Our ushers, Sandy Berezowitz and Brana Wallman, our Zoom host, Anita Miller, our coffee hour hosts, Joyce Firebaugh and Diane Kunselman. Please join us for coffee hour in Erman Hall following the service. For those joining us on YouTube, log into Zoom after the service for your coffee hour. The link is in today's email.
Thank you, Alejandro. That was beautiful. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Lisa Scott Patak, and my pronouns are she and hers. Our words of welcome are by Alex Riley. It is good to be together. Together in this co-created sacred space where all are welcome. How you experience gender is welcome here. Who you love and how you love is welcome and celebrated here. Where you are from and where you are in your journey is welcome here. Whether you come full of joy or whether your heart is heavy, you are welcome here. You are part of a beloved community that is sacred because each of us is sacred. Each of us is held always in a larger love. It is good to be together. We begin our time together this morning with sacred ritual, the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Lighting the chalice this morning is Ellie Summers, and I welcome Nancy Hennessy to speak our opening words.
Good morning. I am reading Woven Anew by Reverend Scott Taylor. Come with your joy, your incurable curiosity, your hunger for hope, but bring to your broken heart, your cracked confidence, your ruptured relationships. Let this today be a place of repair. May the words spoken become webbing, weaving again a path back to wisdom, back to forgotten worth, back to a place of peace, now buried by all the striving, worry, and wounds. May the sounds circling in this space sweep you up like a stream whose currents long to carry you home. And may the common breath so sweetly shared between us remind you that loneliness lifts, that we are tethered more tightly than it sometimes seems, that together our hearts can mend and our world can be woven anew. Come, let us begin. The chalice is lit. The chalice is lit. And now our hymn, 318 in the gray hymn book. Alejandro will play it through once, and then we will join in. Rise as you are able to sing We Would Be One.
right, good morning. It's time for the message for all ages, so I'm going to invite those who are young and young at heart or who just want a better view of the screen to come on up. Assuming my clicker's going to work. We did test this. All right, I need a tech helper. Who wants to come be the tech helper today? Come here. When I point to you, you gotta click on the next button. All right, flexibility. All right, so this morning, I have a story for everybody called Badger's Parting Gifts. Okay? And the author and illustrator is Susan Varley, and we always want to give them credit because they work really hard on their work for these books too. Okay? Now, I had somebody tell me that they think this book is a little bit sad, and I will warn you, there are some sad parts in it, but I don't think it's a sad story. So I want you to think about how you might change how you're thinking while we hear this one. All right, let me make sure I can see. All right, press. Badger was dependable, reliable, and always ready to lend a helping paw. He was also very old, and he knew almost everything. Badger was so old, he knew soon he was going to die. But Badger wasn't afraid of death. Dying only meant he would leave his body behind, and his body didn't work as well as it had in the days gone by. So Badger wasn't really too concerned about that. His only worry was how his friends would feel after he was gone. Hoping to prepare them, Badger had told them that someday soon he would be going down the long tunnel, and he hoped they wouldn't be too sad when it happened. One day, as Badger was watching Mole and Frog race down the hillside, he felt especially old and tired. He wished more than anything that he could run with them, but he knew his old legs wouldn't let him. He watched Mole and Frog for a long time, enjoying the sight of his friends having a good time. It was late when he arrived home, and he wished the moon good night, and he closed his curtains on the cold world outside. He made his way slowly down to the warm fire that was waiting for him deep underground. He had his supper, and he sat down on his desk to write a letter. When he had finished, he settled down in his rocking chair near the fire, and he gently rocked himself to and fro. And soon he was fast asleep, having a strange and wonderful dream like none he'd ever had before. Much to Badger's surprise, he was running. Ahead of him was a very long tunnel. His legs felt strong and sure as he ran towards it. He no longer needed his walking stick, so he left it lying on the floor of his tunnel. Badger moved swiftly, running faster and faster through the long passageway until his paws no longer touched the earth. He felt free. It was as if he had fallen out of his own body. The following day, Badger's friends gathered anxiously outside Badger's door. They were worried because he hadn't come outside to say good morning as he always did. Fox read Badger's note to them, and it simply said, "Gone down the long tunnel. Bye-bye, Badger." Next. Well, all the animals had loved Badger, and everyone was sad. Outside, it began to snow. Winter had begun, and soon a thick layer of snow hid the animals' homes, where they would stay snug and warm during the cold months. Badger had always been there when anyone needed him, and the animals wondered what they would do now that he was gone. He had told them not to be unhappy, but it was hard not to be. As spring drew near, the animals often went to visit each other, and they talked about all of the days when Badger was alive. Mole was good at using scissors, and he told about the time that Badger had taught him how to cut out a chain of moles from a piece of folded paper. Paper moles had littered the ground all day. Mole remembered the joy he felt when he had finally succeeded in making a complete chain of moles with all their paws joined. Frog was an excellent skater, and he recalled how Badger had helped him take his first slippery steps on the ice. Badger had gently guided him across the ice until he had gained enough confidence to glide on his own. Fox remembered how, when he was a young cub, he could never knot his tie properly until Badger showed him how. Fox could now tie every knot ever invented, and some he made up himself, and of course his own necktie was perfectly knotted. Badger had given Mrs. Rabbit his special recipe for gingerbread, and had shown her how to bake gingerbread rabbits. Mrs. Rabbit was well known throughout the countryside for her excellent cooking, and as she talked about her first cooking lesson with Badger so long ago, she could almost smell the wonderful fragrance of gingerbread fresh from the oven. Each of the animals had a very special memory of Badger, something he had taught them that they could now do extremely well. He had given each of them a parting gift to treasure always. Using those parting gifts, they would always be able to help each other. As the last of the snow melted, so did the animals' sadness. And whenever Badger's name was mentioned, someone always remembered another story that made them all smile. And that's the end. So something to think about, and something we'll talk about a little bit more when we get upstairs. But let's just do a quick thumbs up. I thought that was happy. Thumbs down. No, I'm still kind of bummed out. Oh, I see some in-betweens too. Yeah, it's a big thing to think about. So we got a lot to talk about. So let's do our blessing and go up and do that. All right, ready? We are blessed. We are blessed by being. We are blessed by being here. We are blessed by being here together.
There are many ways each of us give to the life of our church, and our collection is just one of these ways. Each month, we partner with a local organization who's doing great work within our community. Our partner for the month of August is Hope Center of Racine. More information on how to donate can be found in the back of your order of service. Recognizing the worth and dignity of each person, Hopes helps people end their homelessness. Hopes has many programs, but the core program is their street art outreach. Their remarkable outreach team goes out at night to meet people who are homeless where they are. They provide basic assistance, build relationships of trust, and help them connect to services. The team places a special emphasis on serving people with mental health challenges. Hopes actively collaborates with other agencies in Racine that serve people experiencing homelessness in our community. Thank you for your gifts to the Hope Center and to this church. An excerpt from a reading, Evening Tide by Elizabeth Tarbucks. Spirit of life, we give thanks for the opportunities to love that present themselves in the turmoil of life, where the light catches the tears in another's eyes, where hands are held and there are moments without words. Let us be present then and alive to the possibility of changing. Let us seek to make another's well-being the object of our concern. Let us seek to be present to another's pain, to bathe another's wounds, hear another's sadness, celebrate another's success, and allow another's story to change our own. Let us stand in the morning on damp grass, hear the syllables of bird song, and fill up on sweet air that rolls over oceans and continents. Let us look up at the stars and the planets that fill the night sky with majesty. Let us witness the first fresh buds of spring amid the brown sticks of winter. And for all this, let us be grateful. Part of being in community is sharing our joys and our sorrows with one another. Sometimes we share them aloud, sometimes we light candles, and sometimes we have entirely different rituals. We all experience comfort in sharing and holding one another in compassion and love. This morning, you are invited to come and share here your joy or the sorrow that is on your heart, and to light a candle, or simply come up and light a candle if you wish.
Ruth Bradford Johnson. I learned this week that my friend of 51 years' daughter died. Sarah was 47. She was born with cerebral palsy. And although she never had expressive language, she taught us all how much you can communicate without words. And Badger's gift was just the perfect story for me today. Thank you.
I'd like to light a candle for Everett Kuiper, memory of Everett Kuiper, as I heard the story about Badger's gifts, and I looked in the order of service that we'd be singing Spirit of Life, Come and Bind Us Together, which he sang all the time. After he died, then several of us took over doing it, and the story was perfect for that, and just reminded me of my joy at him, my sorrow at his loss, but my appreciation of his gifts over the years.
It's always a joy to see our friend and former minister, Tony.
Yeah, I had a joy this week. Thursday I turned 50, which was a big thing, so I had so many blessings and gratitude in my life. A little bit of a sorrow, though. I had two things I was planning to do, and then it got rained out on Thursday, and it got rained out big time last night. I was at the beer garden, and it got poured on. So I do have some leftover cake afterwards, so hopefully you guys will share some cake with me afterwards. So there you go.
Gonna get wobbly chin here. I'd like to light a candle for Max Firebaugh. I went to his memorial service on Thursday evening and was so moved by how many young people that we didn't know, although there were a lot of Unitarians there, but people at Gateway whose lives he touched. Not just did they know him, he just brought joy and a spark to their life. He was amazing. I mean, I knew he was a great young man, but he was amazing in ways that I had no idea. So his life was, of course, too short.
We light one final candle for the joys and sorrows left unspoken, and for those that are on the hearts of our beloveds joining us online. We invite you to join in singing our shared response, "There is a love holding me, there is a love holding us." I hadn't quite made it back into church yet. I was here, but I was up there, attending online with my Zoom family. Really, I'd been away from church since we closed for COVID. But when we received that resignation letter from Reverend Danielle in April, I felt it go through all of us. I felt it, that collective exhale. Oh, what lies before us now? How will we get there? How will we carry on? And this brought me back here. I returned to attending in person, to be in shared worship with all of you, and to savor those last sweet sermons from Reverend Danielle. It was sweet to be here and to feel her presence, to connect with her energy, to feel her passion and love. And as she so often said, it was good to be here together. But it was also tinged with grief for parting with a loved one all too soon. Grief, the anguish experienced after significant loss. It is a natural emotional reaction to the loss of someone or something important. So grief begins with loss. And there are so many forms of loss. The departure of a loved one, like Reverend Danielle, the loss of ability or mobility because of health or just aging. We can grieve our former selves and the things we can no longer do. The loss of a close connection to someone you love because of dementia or estrangement. And the most painful, the irrevocable loss of a death of a loved one, of someone close. And that can overwhelm and completely derail us. In those moments of all-consuming grief, how do we carry on? In the American Psychological Association podcast, How Grieving Changes the Brain, Dr. Mary Frances O'Connor says, "It is difficult to be with a person who is grieving. It's an intensity that is quite difficult to sit with. People are having some of the worst experiences of their life. Frequently, we don't know what grief will feel like until we walk through that door. We don't need cheering up at this moment, just someone to be with them, and to know that we will be with them however long and for whatever shape this takes." I wanted to talk about this today because we all carry grief within us. Maybe not always right on the surface, like when the loss of someone you love dearly blots out all other reality for a time and the world stands still and you are immersed in suffering. But it's always there in some form, at some level. And because I know that loss and deep grief lies ahead for me. Grief has been a frequent visitor this year to our larger community, for people we have known and respected and worked with in our community for years, to our congregation who have lost loved ones and members of their family, and to me. I lost two of my oldest and dearest friends within the span of 2 weeks this spring. Bob Ortle, my partner in crime for all sorts of crazy environmental warrior escapades. Bob was older than me, 16 years older. He was a tall, wiry, sardonic guy, cynical but funny, enormously talented in all things handyman. He could create or build anything from any kind of material, and he could and would tear or cut or burn down anything that needed removing with gusto. He had ceaseless energy, not zippy energy, just consistent, steady, get the task done and on to the next one energy. He was a linchpin in the volunteer corps at the Riverbend Nature Center, and although he was not in good health in recent years, his death was unexpected, and it hit us hard. When they held a memorial bonfire for him at Riverbend, I was there. I had to be with others who loved and remembered him and had stories to tell about our Bob, and the love and the laughter we shared soothed the ache in my heart. And an irrepressible smile comes to me now whenever I think of Bob and the many stories and memories we shared. But I do not yet have a smile when I think of Christy. Not yet. I met Christy in the 80s through folk dancing, 40 years ago. Like everyone else, I was drawn to this most beautiful, graceful dancer and her gentle spirit. There was something light and delicate about Christy, who always had a ready smile, a perceptive ear. You knew you could open your heart to her and she would understand. 14 years ago, while pursuing the cause of her back and leg pain, they discovered breast cancer at stage 4, the most advanced stage of cancer, and it had already metastasized to her bones. She would need a hip replacement immediately. We kicked into gear. From that time on, I stood vigil at her hospital visits and operations. I drove her to her oncology appointments, both at Froedtert in Milwaukee and later to Northwestern Hospital in Chicago. In the beginning, we would go every 3 months, but in the last year, it was more like 3 times in a month. Christy's cancer grew slow but sure and gradually spread. She embodied the spirit of carrying on. She had superhuman endurance, fierce determination, and hope. Always optimistic that there was something new right around the corner, something to extend precious life. As I prepared to leave on a trip with my daughter Anna in late March, Christy and I had several conversations about hospice. She put off the decision as long as possible because to her, it wasn't about receiving help and comfort measures. Hospice was giving up and admitting that death was near. At one of my last visits with her at home, we couldn't bring ourselves to say goodbye, to verbalize our love for one another. She waved me off, and we had to settle for, you know how very important you are to me. I made those calls to the hospice team while we were in Scotland, and we initiated care upon my return. By that time, she was already at the stage where her alert hours were few, and personal communication was nearly impossible. The cancer affected her hearing, and she just couldn't hear me. I never imagined there would come a time when we couldn't talk. And then her family flew in, and we were never alone. I decided I would slip in early the next morning before any of the care team arrived, before family, and just sit with her and say whatever was on my heart, whether she could hear me or not. So the next morning I got up early, I dressed, and reached for my phone as I headed out the door. There was a text message from her nephew at 2 a.m. Christy had passed in the night. I spoke to my daughter Anna about wanting to talk about this with you here today, and she said, "Mom, you have to hear the Stephen Colbert interview with Andrew Garfield. I'll send you the link." It's a very moving clip, about 3 minutes. You should watch it if you can. Andrew Garfield was a guest on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and at the end of the interview, Colbert offers his condolences on the recent loss of his mother. You can see that Andrew knows he is receiving the introduction, the invitation to speak about his mother, and he swallows and clears his throat a few times. He composes himself, and fighting back tears, he says, "I love talking about her, by the way, and if I cry, it's only a beautiful thing. This is all the unexpressed love, right? The grief that will remain with us until we pass because we never get enough time with each other, right? No matter if someone lives to 60, 15, or 99, I hope this grief stays with me because it's all the unexpressed love I didn't get to tell her. We all know somewhere deep down that life is sacred, life is short, and that we just better be here as much as possible with each other, holding on to each other." And as the interview ends, he leans over and thanks Colbert for allowing him to say that. Stephen Colbert was himself interviewed by Anderson Cooper twice on the topic of grief. The first was on CNN, and the second, several years later, was for Anderson's podcast series on grief and loss called All There Is. Anderson Cooper says, "About 2 months after my mom died in June 2019, I was back at work, and I sat down with Stephen Colbert for an interview on CNN. I'd read that Stephen's father and 2 of his teenage brothers were killed in a plane crash when Stephen was 10. It's the same age I was when my dad died. I was feeling lonely and sad after my mom's death, and I decided to see if Stephen might be willing to talk with me about some of his experiences with grief." Anderson opens that interview talking about how people had written to him or had come up to him on the street to share their stories of loss and grief with him, and how helpful and how powerful that was, because normally we don't speak about grief. And then at one point, Anderson says, "You told an interview that you had learned, in your words, to love the thing that I wished most had not happened." Anderson pauses here. You can see the emotion well up inside him. And with a trembling voice, he continues, "You went on to say, what punishments of God are not gifts? Do you really believe that?" Colbert responds, "Yes. It is a gift to exist, and with existence comes suffering. There's no escaping that. So what do you get from loss? You get awareness of other people's loss, which allows you to connect with that other person, which allows you to love more deeply and to understand what it is to be a human being, if it's true that all humans suffer. And so at a young age, I suffered something so that by the time I was in serious relationships in my life, with friends, with my wife, with my children, is that I have some understanding that everybody is suffering, and however imperfectly, acknowledge their suffering and connect with them and love them in a deep way that makes you grateful for the fact that you have suffered so that you can know that about other people. It's about the fullness of your humanity. I want to be the most human I can be, and that involves ultimately being grateful for things that I wish didn't happen because they gave me a gift. It is a deeply personal and honest conversation, both this one and the second one 3 years later, where two men sit down and discuss honestly and openly how losing their fathers at the age of 10 shaped their lives, their relationship with their mothers, and who they were to become as adults, and what it is to be with grief. Colbert had many profound things to say in that interview. He's able to speak from a place of knowledge, from deep reflection, from the distance of 45 years. He is composed, comfortable with the topic, even humorous at times. Anderson, on the other hand, is still raw with grief. It shows in his face, and it makes him open and unguarded. He does not strive to maintain his professional demeanor as a broadcast journalist. There is no artifice. He is honest, he is authentic, and he exposes his broken heart and his pain. It is very moving. So to his question, how can there be a gift in the excruciating experience of grief? I think that the gift is not just, as Colbert says, that it allows you to recognize the suffering of another, to open your heart, to allow you to feel and express compassion. But the gift is also that when your knees have been buckled by grief, it allows you to be completely raw and open, completely honest, no social face to uphold, just your vulnerability, your love, your broken heart. And this is the most sacred space to be in. Anderson Cooper said, as isolating and lonely as grief can be, as sadness can be, it is also something that links all of us together. And I'm really grateful for that. I have one more friend I want to talk about. I have a friend, Mike. We've been friends since our 20s. Mike prides himself, calls himself the curmudgeon. Look that one up. Crusty, cranky, stubborn, ill-tempered, holding negative attitudes. He's all of that. But it's all a show, done in humor, done to mask the fact that he really does care about people and he wants things to be better. And he's not fooling any of us. We know. We enjoy his sarcasm and his outrageous statements, and he makes us all laugh. Mike gathered the whole gang together, sat us down, stood before us, and told us of the symptoms that he was having, how it led him to the doctor, which led to the discovery of pancreatic cancer. There are new treatments now that buy you some time, but that's all it is. People don't live long with pancreatic cancer. After that day, I called and asked if I could visit. I visited him 3 times before I could bring myself to say what was on my heart. I asked his wife to allow us to speak privately, and then I crossed the room to sit next to him. I took his hand and I said, I don't know what I want to say or how to say it, but I just have to tell you how much I love you. Crusty, sarcastic Mike looked me directly in the face and listened, and unabashedly held my hand with a long, steady grasp, in no hurry to let go. And we sat there together, talking, sharing memories and love, and squeezing each other's hand. I didn't say goodbye to Mike. I told him I loved him. So when the time does come that I have to say goodbye to Mike, there will not be the regret of words left unsaid. I didn't get to hold Christy's hand, look long and lovingly in her face, and say those words. But it's okay. We lived our love for each other every time we got together, with the eagerness and openness of our conversations, with full, loving, trusting support of one another that we always felt in each other's presence. We lived the comfort of knowing the depth of our love and friendship. In her podcast, How Grieving Changes the Brain, Kim Mills says, few of us will make it through life without losing someone we love. Grief, as it has been said, is the cost of love. Anderson Cooper. The loneliness of grief is extraordinary, and just someone acknowledging that you're going through it is a consolation. So let us strive to be aware, to have compassion for the unspoken grief within us all. Treat each other gently, and don't wait. Say it. Say it often to those important to you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Amen. Blessed be. Diana Pavao will lead us in singing Bind Us Together. The words to the chorus are in your order of service. Please rise in body or spirit to sing Bind Us Together.
Spirit of life, come and bind us together with cords that cannot be broken. Bind us together, oh, bind us together, oh, bind us together with love. We are part of one web. Every being has worth. We are part of one body. There is only one earth. Spirit of life, come and bind us together with cords that cannot be broken. Bind us together, oh, bind us together, oh, bind us together with love. Spirit, here in my heart, Spirit, help me to see. Light I find in my neighbor is the same light in me. Spirit bind us together, oh, bind us together, oh, bind us together with love. Life that flows through us all, life that gives dignity, love that makes us all one, truth that sets us all free. Spirit, life, come and bind us together with cords that cannot be broken. Bind us together, oh, bind us together, oh, bind us together with love.
A blessing for grief. May you be tender and gentle with yourself and be cared for by those who will envelop you with compassion and presence. May you know that there is so much beauty in your grief, especially when it feels messy. May you know that the depth of your grief is a measurement of the love that your heart is capable of. May you cry an ocean of tears and never fear the tides of your grief. May you scream and rage and emote your pain in safe and supported spaces, and may you never be judged for the power of your expression. May you be comforted by a blanket of woven of love when you feel the harsh and palpable illusion of loneliness. May you remember in moments of despair that all life comes from the womb of sacred darkness and that something new will be born from this void. May you allow yourself to change. May the pain of your loss awaken you to the pulse of your humanity. May you have faith in the crucible of your soul to transform this grief into a numinous song that brings you closer to your own divinity. May your experience of loss expand your capacity to extend compassion to others. May you eventually wear your scars as luminous gems on the unfurled wings of your heart. And may you always remember the preciousness of life.
We extinguish our chalice, but not the light of this community. That light cannot be extinguished, for it lives on in each of us, reminding us that we are connected, held always in a larger love. All that we have shared and all that remains unsaid, we hold in our hearts. We lift all this love that you can feel in this moment, this love that extends beyond this room. Remembering those who have left this life, drawing them into our hearts, we carry them with us, remembering their lessons, their stories, their love, their friendship. Our worship is over. Our service begins again. Go forth knowing you are loved. Go forth sharing that love. Go forth until we return again. Peace and unrest.